here. Great, you just made my job like 100% easier. So the Fonz was a character on Happy Days, which was a TV show that lasted for 11 seasons, that went from 1974 to 1984, with a total of 255 episodes, which is way too many episodes for any TV show. It was set in 1950s/60s Milwaukee, and it was a show that was inspired by American Graffiti, so much so that it stole Ron Howard from that film to have him as arguably the lead character, Richie Cunningham. And it was also a spin-off of a Love American Style, which is kind of like a fun anthology series from the early 1970s. Okay, so Happy Days has like this really incredible, weird legacy in terms of television sitcoms, in that it had 8 spin-offs. The ones you know the best are Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy, but it also had 3 cartoon spin-offs that I'll be getting into a little bit later on. And the show is considered to be one of the most, pleasant, family-friendly, shows of the 1980s. But the thing is, looking at it from a 2018 point of view, the Fonz is kind of a womanizer and a creep, and I just want to say fuck the patriarchy. That's about as political as this talk's going to get, because it's Fonzie. But yeah, he was still, Fonzie's got a bit of a dark past. And kind of tying into that dark past is, originally on the show, he was kind of considered a hoodlum. He was not a main character when the show began. He was just kind of the supporting guy who kind of was both an antagonist and gave the Richie Cunningham, which was Ron Howard's character, which was supposed to be the lead of the show. But then an interesting thing happened. Fonzie became very popular.
And abandoned the windbreaker.
Yes, he originally had this windbreaker. The reason he wore the windbreaker at first was because network censors would not let a character on their show wear a leather jacket, because they consider that to be the wardrobe of hoodlums. So to get around this, the producers of the show had Fonzie riding his motorcycle as much as possible, which is why he would come into Arnold's wearing the motorcycle, and you genuinely see him. So Fonzie, he was originally just this very kind of tough character who became softened over the years, Again, this show went for 11 seasons, and it got really, really unwatchable. There was a point where Fonz had a lot of love interests over the years, and I'll get into that. He had a lot of love interests, and by the end of the show, everything that made Fonzie was completely stripped away. When the series finale rolled around, he was a pillar of the community. He was respected by everyone, and everything cool about him was removed. And the reason why Fonzie was so popular is because 1970s and 80s audiences considered him to be the epitome of cool. And by the time the show ended, not so much. So the lesson is, eventually in life you will become the thing you hate the most. So here we have the most infamous moment, which is Fonzie jumping the shark. Jumping the shark is now a term that is kind of a catch-all term that says when a show just kind of loses its shit entirely and should be gone. If you'll notice though, in the scene, you don't actually even see him jumping over the fucking shark. There's no shark in that scene. So it's just kind of, it's a little bit of bullshit. If you guys get a chance tonight, and I hope you will, please check out the Fonz Wikipedia page, because this goes on for way longer than it should. I'm going to read you my favorite part of it. Fonzie would at times demonstrate an almost magical ability to manipulate technology with just a nudge, bump, or a snap of his fingers for things such as starting a car, turning on lights, coaxing free sodas from a vending machine, making girls respond, or changing the song selection on a jukebox. Somewhat hyperbolic examples of his abilities can be seen in his dreamlike encounter with the extraterrestrial Mork, such as a form psychokinesis triggered from the snapping of his fingers to an energy-resistant thumb capable of resisting Mork's finger. Fonz is a goddamn warlock. It's amazing. So, Fonz was a ladies' man. So I want to ask you guys this question. Please respond by applause. Was Fonzie hot? Yeah, no, there's not a lot of people who think Fonzie is hot here. And that is the correct answer because I did a very scientific study on my Twitter account. 47% said A, he was hot, and the other 53% told me to sit on it. Fonzie is not hot, so it's really interesting to me, like, why was he considered this sexism? And this is sexism, well, yeah, and sex symbol. And I think it was because of his charisma. Henry Winkler is a great actor. He just won an Emmy for Barry. Yeah, Barry's a great show. Winkler is fantastic, really sweet, nice guy. And I think his charm and charisma is why the Fonz character, hands down, no other reason. It certainly wasn't the writing on Happy Days. So, you know, that's it. So because Fonz was so popular, Fonzie became this kind of merchandising bonanza. It seems like every one of these talks I talk about weird merchandising. I just want to point out two things. One is the Fonzie paper doll, which, okay, sure, why not? And the other is the Happy Days novel. There were at least 5 of these called The Fonz and Lazanga, in which the Fonz squared off against a psychic. What? Yeah, exactly. Why is the Fonz hanging around with the psychic? But the thing is, that was not the only time the Fonz met a psychic. In the Happy Days comic, he also squared off with yet another psychic. So that was a whole weird thing. So you can see some of Fonzie's pop culture impact here. My Beloved Archie comics got in on the Fonz craze. And there's also kind of this educational comic given away that tells you how to use kites that use Fonzie. Sure, why not? This whole segment here is just the lead up to one of my favorite out-of-context comic panels of all time, which is Chachi bending behind Fonzie saying, "I've got a lot to learn. You're doing fine, Chachi, just fine." Which gives a whole new meaning to the phrase, "sit on it." So Fonz was a, you know, everyone wanted to cash in on Fonzie, so a lot of commercials did just that. Let's take a look at one.
We're going to the Honeycomb Hideout!
Big Bully's back!
My big friends want to try honeycomb.
He says it's real big.
It is!
Hey, is it big?
Hey, is it big?
A post had some cereal, part of that was breakfast.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of Fonz-sploitation right there. Okay, that's just going to continue. And as you can see, there were tons of other ways that Fonz was exploited by, like, audiences trying to cash in, companies trying to cash in on Fonz Mania. Trix Rabbit had a great Fonz-centric commercial you can watch on YouTube. Gerald Ford put out that shameless campaign pin. And I think a recent example, the most recent I can think of, is Weezer's Buddy Holly video, which also kind of brought this whole new life to Happy Days fandom in '94, where ushered in this whole wave of nostalgia. And nostalgia is part and parcel with why Fonzie is so successful. You have to remember it came on in the 1970s, which is a very bleak time for America. So, you know, people living in the 70s decided, let's look backwards to the 1950s. It was a more innocent time. It was a more safe time. I mean, if you were a straight white male, everyone else was fucked. But, you know, so that's kind of why, you know, I think Happy Days was such a popular show. So another thing that kind of spawned out of this Fonzploitation were all of these Fonzie records. There were a lot of different Fonzie songs, albums about Fonz. The K-Tel record collection actually did 2 officially licensed Fonz albums. And there was even your own Fonz phonograph that you could play Fonzie songs on. But what kind of Fonzie songs would you play? Well, I would like to introduce you to a song by the Jackson 5 called Do the Fonzie.
Get on it!
Do the Fonz, everybody! Oh, hey, let's not watch that again. So, as kind of the show Happy Days was winding down, they, you know, ABC realized that kids still love Fonzie. So what can we do? Let's make a Fonzie cartoon in which naturally he travels through time and space like Doctor Who.
Of course!
We got it all together now, gang. The Fonz.
Okay, so after this aired, This got canceled after 2 seasons. Fonzie got integrated into the Laverne and Shirley cartoon. There was also a Mork and Mindy cartoon. But on that Laverne and Shirley cartoon, they were in the Army, and their commanding officer was a pig who was the voice of Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter. So, yeah. Fonzie's popularity continues to endure even. And here's this very horrific looking statue of the Fonz that if you're ever in Milwaukee, feel free to go there and visit it and sacrifice your newborns to it, I guess? I don't know exactly what's supposed to happen there. Before I take some questions, I just want to tell you, I'll be doing 2 New York Comic Con presents this coming week. The first is Sci-Fi Explosion on Tuesday night at Rock Bar. And on Thursday night at the Way Station in Brooklyn, I'll be doing the 5th annual Doctor Who costume and trivia contest. And you can also follow me on Demic Geek and on Twitter at Bionic Bigfoots and Sci-Fi Explosion. Thanks, everybody.
Go to nerdnight.com to find a Nerd Night event near you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for our latest presentation.